Hello and welcome to this new episode of AI and Digital Trust, Future Proofing Your Boards, hosted by brilliant CTO of IBM, Khwaja Sheikh, and myself, Manoj Agarwal. Today, we'll be talking with Beverley Sibblies. So, Beverley is the founder and president of BAS Financial Corporation, a family office. Prior to founding BAS Financial, Beverly was Chief Financial Officer from 2005 to 2008 and Chief Accounting Officer 2004 to 2005 of HSBC Finance Corporation, a multi product, multi channel consumer finance company with operations in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. The company had over $140 billion worth of assets under management. Its business lines included credit cards, retail services, auto finance, consumer and commercial lending, residential mortgages, insurance, and taxpayer services. During her tenure at HSBC, Beverly implemented funding strategies that ensured consistent debt rating of AA negative with positive or stable outlook, prioritize risk management, and developed initiatives that encouraged and fostered collaboration with colleagues across the globe, and positive relations with regulators and analysts. From 2000 to 2004, Beverly was Executive Vice President and CFO of EMC Mortgage Corporation, a Texas based wholly owned subsidiary of Bear Stearns Companies, Inc. EMC engaged in the acquisition, servicing, securitizing, and sale of performing and distressed residential mortgage loans. Beverly led numerous strategic multi billion dollar acquisitions that provided operating scale and profitable year over year growth. She managed financial functions, including the Office of the Chief Accountant, Controller, and Investor Reporting. Beverly began her career with Deloitte and Touche LLP, New York in 1986. She was admitted as an audit partner in 1997. Her clients included publicly traded companies and high visibility Office of the Chairman clients such as Morgan Stanley, Dean Ritter, TIAA, CREF, Prudential, Bear Stearns, Columbia University, KKR, and BNP. Beverly is currently a director on the boards of Discover Financial Services and Discover Bank. She serves on the audit committee and the governance and controls committee. Beverly is also a director of the board of Arup College of Loyola University. She also serves on the foundation and society boards of Brightpoint, a human services non-profit agency. Beverly graduated from Queens College in New York with a BA degree in accounting, and she has earned her CPA license in 1998. Wow, welcome, Beverly.
Yeah, Manoj, I don't see Beverly on the screen. Now I see it. Perfect.
Beverly, I think you are on mute. Hmm. Yeah, I think your mic is not connected. If you can try to connect your mic. Hmm. I think we are having some difficulty, technical difficulty. So let me just. No, we cannot hear you right now. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, can you say something? I think it's. Can you say something? Yeah.
Disconnected. I apologize for that.
No worries. No worries. Yeah.
But thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I appreciate your inviting me to speak, and I look forward to a robust conversation with you both.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. One more thing, Manoj.
Yes.
Uh, Not only that, she is also a very good person. She leads with genuine humility, and I would say, if you have one interaction, you will have interaction for life. She treats everybody as equals. She is at a higher stage. I enjoyed all of my conversations with her, and it makes her very memorable. Thank you, Beverly, for spending time with us on this evening. Um, so, Beverly, with all the tariffs that is going on, I was reflecting on this. As I counsel the board chairs, lead directors, CFOs, etc. One thing I double down is on innovation, because I tell them innovation is directly tied to growth. Where there are several examples out there. Even if you look at the Delta Airlines, at
Are we
Delta.
live? I'm not hearing you.
You're not hearing? Yeah. Can you hear us now or no?
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear us or no?
Anybody there?
Yes.
I think we're
Can you-
having some connectivity issues.
Okay. Let me.
Manoj,
Yeah.
Fajra?
We are here. Let me see.
I'm sorry, guys. We seem to be having trouble. I don't know if you can hear me, but I cannot
We can
hear
hear
you
you.
and I cannot see you.
Okay. So let's do one thing. Shall we close this and maybe jump on a Zoom call where we can still have the conversation?
Okay, I just heard you. You came back. It seems as if my connection is going in and out.
Okay.
So
So
what
should we
should we do?
reschedule it? Yeah. Should we reschedule it, or should we go on an alternate platform?
I think we will. I think Manu, just try for another 10 minutes.
Okay.
If it does not work, we can.
Okay. Let's try for 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, let's hope it works. Fingers
yes.
crossed here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So
Good,
basically,
good, good.
just to recap, right? I strongly believe that innovation is directly tied to growth, and there are several examples out there. One of the example I get is about Delta Airlines, where Delta Airlines strongly believes in innovation, and anytime I fly Delta Airlines, when I sit on the plane, I get a frictionless experience. My Wi-Fi works like anything, and
Unlike the one we're experiencing now.
exactly. so, and not only that, the excitement I get when I go to the Delta Atlanta airport, I straightly walk into the Delta lounge. Believe me, it's like another home. The lounge experience I get is outstanding. So, uh, so when I look at the Delta, they have not only become good at their core on how to fly the planes at the right time, but they have also expanded on the industry adjacencies by offering superior customer experiences. That I'm also making new revenues with the branding that they have, with the credit card branding around the Delta, etc. So there is so much in tying innovation to growth. What I would like to hear from you is both from two different lenses, CFO lens as well as board director lens. If you are a CFO, what would you do to make sure that innovation is tied to growth priorities? And if you are counseling other board directors, what kind of wisdom you offer to those board directors so that when they are overseeing as part of the financial oversight, they make sure that the innovation is embedded for the long term for the growth.
Well, excellent questions, and I thank you for framing it that way and giving us the Delta example. Um, I have been fortunate, as Manoj read from my bio, to have served as CFO in two companies that were focused on growth. Growth was the strategic imperative at the company. And we grew in a number of ways. We grew by what we call tuck-in acquisitions, where we found products or markets or demographics that were unique, that were in the space and very compatible with what we were doing already. And then we had transformative growth through bigger acquisitions. In one instance, we actually bought a company. It was a distressed company. We were stalking horse because they were going through a bankruptcy. We were the stalking horse. We actually won the acquisition, won the bid, and the company was itself larger than us in terms of assets. Okay, so we were this little minnow, this little guppy swallowing a whale. And so in either case, and this is using the CFO hat to use your question to either case, you had to have a mindset of innovation. You had to have, led by the CEO, directed by the board, following your strategic framework and your strategic plan. You had to have innovation to be able to, whether it's tuck-in, whether it's transformative, especially if it's transformative, it is absolutely necessary that you have your tech team on their A game. You have heard, I am sure you have, of companies that have made large acquisitions or small acquisitions and have failed because it's all about execution. You can buy anything at any time. It's how you execute it and how your technology operates going forward. Is it seamless? Is it choppy? Are you operating on multiple platforms at the same time, which leads to risks and compliance and poor customer service and glitchiness in reporting and errors in reporting and regulatory scrutiny that none of us wants. Okay, you don't want to make the regulators your enemy, or not have them favor you or be in their good graces. So innovation is very important. And your technology team looking at not only what we have today, but what we will need tomorrow to execute, that is certainly critical. If I switch to on the board side, you have a strategy, a long-term mission for your company. You have a strategic plan for a year or a 3-year or 5-year plan, but longer term, you have a mission. You have to make sure that with your CEO, again, leading an executive team with the board, overseeing and doing their fiduciary duties, challenging the plan, making sure that the CFO is not putting a softball plan in place where you can, hit the ball out of the ballpark without, breaking a sweat type of thing, and signing off on whatever it is that you agree to, you commit to, because you're going to be held accountable for it. You're going to be perhaps compensated based upon the results, but you have to make sure that as CFO, and the board has to make sure that it's a stretch plan that gets you to whatever end game you want to see, whatever objective you want to achieve, and to hold management accountable for it. So innovation is definitely part of the fabric, or should be anyway, part of the fabric of how one thinks about the company. And when I speak of innovation, and maybe when you do too, we're not necessarily thinking of wildly transformative. We're not thinking about quantum computing at this point. We're talking about almost, steady meat and potatoes type of innovation. And there will be some transformative opportunities, don't get me wrong. There was, in the case of one of the larger acquisitions that I did back when I was CFO, where we looked at the technology and some of what the company was doing, although it was bankrupt, what they were doing made sense. They were just not doing it well, and you have to have the people, the support, the resources to do what you need to do well. You cannot have uh, good a good company without both having, your innovative technology team working, your executive team working, the leadership of the CEO, the support of the board, and the resources that you need to execute. So very critical. And I commend Delta, because they have lifelong fan, it seems, of what they've been doing. But yeah, I appreciate your question. It is critical to growth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is
all right.
fabulous, Beverley. I think if I add one more thing, Manoj, before you get into, I would add one more thing is about IBM. Over last 100 years, IBM has reinvented itself more than 4 to 5 times. From CTR technology to mainframe to the PC era to services era to now AI era. So it's when the innovation is embedded in the DNA of the company, it's the opportunities are boundless.
Yeah, and if I could just give you 2 examples of where things did not go well, it's not my companies, but I'll use those examples anyway. You may know of a company, you may have heard of a company called Blockbuster Video. Okay, what happened to them? They failed to see beyond what they were doing, and they were eclipsed by Netflix. And I believe I'm correct in saying that the owner of Netflix, Reed Hastings,
Yes.
way back when, came to Blockbuster and wanted to do a joint venture with them. And Blockbuster at that time was at the top of their game. And I don't know how the story unfolded, but the end result was they didn't do that joint venture, and they went out of business because they were not innovative enough. And Reed Hastings saw the future, and it was not getting videos picked up at the store to be returned that was not it. He saw the streaming, he saw a different way of delivering. It was just, it's one of those incredible stories of our time, where a company that was riding high went down. They just crashed and burned. And maybe one other, Borders Bookstore. Familiar with that? Yeah,
Yes.
they're not around either. And their competitor, Barnes and Nobles, is, because again, innovation. They realized that books were being digitized. You had to deliver differently. People wanted books on to listen to as they went about their business. The Kindle came into being, all of that. So just 2 other examples on the other side of it, of the coin, where you fail to see the future clearly enough and you go out of business as a result of it.
So these are very interesting examples. What we talked about was, when we go through an acquisition, or we need to innovate within the company, there are factors inside the company or the company that we are purchasing. But there are also external factors, like whatever is going on in the world today, which
Yes,
is
indeed.
outside of our control, economic uncertainty, and new technologies coming out like AI and blockchain. So, as a CFO or a board director, how do you balance, as you said, like meat and potato innovation, or the regular day-to-day things that are happening? Like, a lot of people we talk to, we say, okay, how are you implementing AI? And sometimes they say, oh, we have a bigger fish to fry. AI can wait. We will wait for this technology to mature. And then there are some transformative technologies, like you just mentioned, quantum and others. So how do you allocate your budgets, or how do you balance these priorities based on the things that are happening inside the company, outside the company? Do you have like any basic guidance to put, like, maybe a certain percentage of your annual revenue towards transformative innovation, or how
Hmm.
much you should allocate towards just meat and potato innovation, those type of things?
Yeah. No, good question. Very, very good question. Um, Certainly one of the things that you have to do, let's take it from, AI. Since you brought that up, let's talk about AI. You have some companies, I'm sure, who have, come out of the AI gate fast and furious, fast adopters. You have some companies like the ones you mentioned that have bigger fish to fry and they're waiting to adopt. And then you have what I call fast followers. We're not going to be first. The pioneers, you know what they say about the pioneers, they're the ones who get shot. So we're not going to raise our head above the precipice too early. We will wait and see. But once we are comfortable enough, and I say comfortable enough because, as you know more than I'm not an expert at AI. You and Kwaja are. Um, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with AI. I use AI personally. It's my personal assistant, but not everybody is ready yet to embrace it fully and wholeheartedly. I am convinced that over time, we will all be using AI. I think it's that powerful a technology. But for now, you have the three camps, in my view, that exist. Those pioneers, those fast followers, and those let's wait and see. One of the things that I have been engaged in with other directors, not necessarily where I serve on the board, but I attend these meetings of directors, the NACD, KPMG, Deloitte, all of the big four. They have all of these offerings to talk about things that matter to directors. And so one of the questions that at one of the meetings I attended, and I don't know which, was when do you go? When do you pull the trigger, so to speak? How much money do you commit? And how do you, what do you do to just test and see? Not necessarily implement, but test and see. And it appeared, at least in that venue, that there were quite a few who were among us who were willing to expend a certain percentage of their budget to test out the technology. You do not know, because you don't have, you're not clairvoyant. You did not know what technologies will succeed. You have options out there. And so, if you could pre-identify which ones would succeed, we'd all be wildly successful, but you can't. And so if you're going to adopt, and you're not totally risk averse, you may want to uh, small portion, a small but adequate portion. It has to be sufficient, obviously, to get you results that are meaningful. Test it out, see what works, and that becomes cost of doing business until you're ready to fully or more fully commit. Maybe not 100%, but maybe you feel more comfortable to get more engaged. Then you allocate. Then you start talking about and looking for what ROI, what efficiencies, what revenue growth, what business mix of human versus technology, you start looking for those and seeing if you get those results as these returns on investment. So that's how I think about it. That's how a lot of people who I've talked to have been thinking about it. I hope I've responded to
Yeah.
your question, but that's
So I'm
really how
guessing
I'm thinking about it.
So I'm guessing the person responsible for the innovation has to convince you that this is the expenditure, this is the return on investment that he
They
can
have to make
estimate.
the use case. They
Yes.
have to make the use case. They are not just going to go out there
Yeah.
and start spending hard-earned dollars.
Yeah.
There has to be a committee or a group or whatever you wanted to, who actually evaluate the use case of whatever it is, the AI in this case, we're talking about, make the argument, uh determine, and this we're not necessarily talking about AI experts who serve on this committee. In fact, we want to have people with enough knowledge to be dangerous, because those people are the ones who ask the toughest question. You don't know as the AI expert where the question is going to come from, because their minds are working in a way that differs from yours. So you want to have a nice mix on that committee, but the expert who is coming to the committee needs to bring their A game in terms of convincing us, the committee, that this is worth putting money on, and this is how we will measure ourselves, and this is how you will hold us accountable for the results. Yes, that is absolutely the case.
Yeah, this is fascinating, Beverly. For those on the LinkedIn Live, feel free to put your questions here, and we will take those questions as we go through the rest of the half an hour. I know there are a lot of board directors and ex-CEOs and CIOs, CTOs, CFOs on this LinkedIn Live. And so, Beverly, I have been observing, corporate world have been have been addicted to Jack Wells era of excessive obsession for the below the line metrics, for short term thinking around efficiency, productivity, uh, uh, etc., while they are not necessarily focusing on the top line. Meaning, if I call a good to great analogy of Jim Collins, there are few companies who are good to great. They are so good at not only at the below the line metrics, but also at the top line metrics around increasing the revenue, superior customer experience, etc. And again, if you wear two different hats, CFO hat and the board director hat, do you see that CFOs are only focused on below the line metrics, or like a good CFO knows how to focus on both below the line as well as top line? And as a board director, as their one of the primary fiduciary responsibility is financial oversight and fiduciary responsibilities in terms of the reporting that goes to SEC, etc. How are they overseeing both the below the line and the top line? Maybe if you can share some advice to the existing
Mm.
folks who are watching this LinkedIn Live, as well as to the board directors.
Yeah, well, let me put on the board hat first. I don't think that there is a director out there who would not challenge a CFO if they did not see demonstrated and were convinced that the company and the company's strategy for growth was exactly what we had committed to, we as a board had committed to. Earlier I mentioned strategic plan. These are generally, 5 year, 3 to 5 year plans. Some may be shorter, but I think 3 to 5 year is probably a sweet spot. And those are, and upfront, we know as directors that we have to offer to the CFO and the company and the CEO, because the CEO is the person who has the leadership, or hires the leadership, including the CFO, to execute. So the board will effectively challenge any plan that seems like a softball. If it's a layup, it's going to be challenged. I'm firmly convinced of that. And boards are looking at peers. We have metrics. We have a ton of information. It's not just look at this year and do 5% more. Not so. Not so. So I think as a board of director, as a director on a board, your duty is to offer effective challenge at every point during the process, including the development of the plan, including the metrics we're going to be measuring against, including, things like customer satisfaction metrics, margin, cost, revenue, earnings per share, the whole plethora of metrics that one looks at to demonstrate success. And so that is in my mind something that should not be even a question that is going to happen. Will CFOs look only for short-term gain? I'm not sure. I will give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. CFOs know that their compensation is tied to not only what happens today, but they're not going to be able to access all of those or monetize all of those options and lockups unless there is steady improvement according to how we plan in all of the metrics that we're measuring ourselves again, and we're being measured against by the market and our peers. So I'm not sure, Kwaja, that I think it's short term only. I think it's short term, long term, and longer term in some cases. Some companies go and forecast 10 years out, which can be tricky because 10 years, a 10-year cycle, a lot can happen. But yeah, I would give my fellow directors and fellow CFOs the benefit of the doubt when it comes to planning and measuring and executing and looking for results.
Thank you, Beverly. Now, does that change if it is the corporate board, the regular public corporate board versus a company that is overseen by a private equity, or it's
No,
more?
no. In fact, it can be. If it's a public board, there are almost some standard metrics that one expects to use, and there are some metrics that are non-GAAP
Right.
that are used as well. In a private situation, you may have some even more of those types of metrics, because you have those directors looking at their portfolio companies using different lens, and they are answerable to a different group of stakeholders. So there may be even more of that. I would say that the scrutiny is probably the same, if not more.
Thank you. Manoj, before you go to the next question, again, there are a lot of technical leaders on the LinkedIn audience, and I generally recommend to all the lead directors, to make sure that financial expertise is very much needed on the board, and especially the technical leaders, they need to understand the basics of the finance. And I strongly recommend this book, How Finance Works, from Mihir Desai, and it will explain a lot of details around EBITDA, GAAP measures, non-GAAP, cash flow, financial ratios, etc. And I strongly recommend that. With that, Manoj, next question.
Yeah, so we talked about technologies like AI, and we briefly touched upon another technology which is very influential in the finance world, which is blockchain. So, how do you see the financial institutions adopting it, or how do you see blockchain impacting the industry overall? Maybe tokenized securities or the way we maintain our contracts. Like, do you see blockchain becoming a core part of the financial industry and the office of like the CFO?
Um, Excellent question. I see less of blockchain today than I see of other technologies. It's there, it's being piloted more so. I don't see a strong adoption of blockchain, not yet anyway. And that might surprise you, but the technology itself, as I understand it, has a lot to offer. You know, it came out of the gate. We knew about blockchain well before AI became big. AI has been around for a long, long time. I don't know if most people know it. You know, it became a common household word with Chat GPT, but
Correct,
it has
correct.
existed before Chat GPT.
Absolutely.
And blockchain, in terms of um, its familiarity to the zeitgeist preceded AI, preceded Chat GPT, not AI. You know, the common man knew about blockchain, I think, earlier than they knew about Chat GPT and AI. That,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if your experience is different, but
No, absolutely
blockchain,
the same. Yeah.
yeah. So it seems to me that blockchain has been slower to the extent that it's still being piloted, and I really don't have a good answer why.
Mhm.
It's used in certain parts very well, but the what it promises in terms of transparency, in terms of being able to trace any transaction through its history, is game changing, but it's still being piloted. And so again, I don't have a good answer why. I maybe down the road it will come into its own, but it's a little bit slower than I thought in
Yeah,
terms of adoption.
yeah. This goes back to the regulatory environment. Uh, the one of the reasons why blockchain was not able to democratize was two things. One was the regulatory environment was not ready to embrace that, and then also it is a team sport. You need the different parties come together to drive that blockchain. So that was one of the reasons. So this reminded me another question, Beverly. The learning agility is very crucial, and sometimes if a board director has a day job as well as sitting on one or two boards, it is very beneficial for the board, because the board director already has some hands on what is going on right now because he's
Hmm.
handling it daily. But when you look at the last 5 to 10 years, there are a lot of SEC regulatory changes, whether it is a climate rules or the cyber security rules or pay say on pay rules, etc. As a board director, what kind of advice do you offer other board directors to keep up with what is happening out there? Any tips that you would like to offer?
I can, I can tell you that in my inbox on any given day, I have just a ton of information offered by, oh, I don't know. I mentioned the NACD, I mentioned KPMG, I mentioned Deloitte. I get information from, the sources are just sometimes overwhelming. Um, I cannot possibly read all that I get in a day and still do my day job. It's that overwhelming. And so the director will not lack for information being available. It's the time to read and absorb. So sources and volume is not an issue. Time is an issue. Uh, but we also learn from each other's. We share information in and outside of the boardroom. We have experts that come into the boardroom or the committee room to talk about issues that are impacting the industry, whatever your industry is, or things that are not, that we ought to be aware of that are coming down the pike. We have access to the expertise of folks that are executives within the company because they too are very knowledgeable. One of the things that I like to do when I have a board meeting is to go a little earlier, maybe an hour or two or three earlier, and walk the halls and say hi to people and talk with people within their office, and or meet them for lunch or a coffee, outside of their office, because one, it gets them knowing you and approaching you and feeling comfortable coming to you when you don't need them or they don't need you. It's a low stress situation. And two, they really can open up about what's on their mind. They feel less inhibited, which is sometimes a good thing. You really get to learn the scoop of what's going on. And that is a source of information. I have on occasion just ask for someone to give me a tutorial on whatever it is that I want to learn. This thing came up in a committee meeting. I know about it a little bit, but I'm not an expert. You teach me. And, that is a good thing as well for relationship building, for communicating. Again, when there is no heat and no stress and no pressure, and they can talk open and freely, knowing that what is said is held in confidence, that is a very good thing. So I think that boards and board of directors have plenty of opportunity to get to know their business, get to know their colleagues, get to know the industry, get to know and we get, by the way, we get presentations by regulators too. They will, and they're pretty open to coming to you and telling you what is on their mind. And that cannot be a bad thing. Better to hear from them in the comfort of a casual meeting than to hear from them through some, consent order or something like that. So yeah, we have a lot of resources. Time is probably the limiting element in, I would guess, with most directors.
Yeah, this is fascinating, Beverly. I just want to put one plug here. For all the board directors who are on the LinkedIn Live, if you need an AI expert, you have right now here Manoj Agrawal. He can give the whole brain dump on what AI is all about. Back
There
to
you
you,
go.
Manoj, for your question.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was just going to continue. Just lack of time seems to be a problem for all of us because we all have 24 hours, and that seems to be the very perfect use case for AI, so that we can keep up to speed with whatever is happening. But continuing on this conversation of upskilling, so one thing is we are getting more information, more resources from everywhere. But do you think now moving forward, all the board directors, all the executives, they need to have uh, certain level of awareness of these digital technologies, including cybersecurity, including AI, so that at least even if they are not an expert, as you said, they have enough to be dangerous and ask the right questions. So do you
Mhm.
think that level of awareness is going up now, or it is still not where it should be?
Um, you mentioned cyber. Let's start there. I think and I don't want to misspeak here, but I think for the last 4 years, when polls have been taken with respect, because we do get polled from various organizations, and it's optional whether you participate or not, but to the extent that these organizations have been able to poll directors and ask, what are your top 5 or 10 biggest concerns? For many years running, cyber has been the top one. And cyber, someone once said, you have 2 groups of people. I don't know if this is correct or not, but I'm going to repeat it. You have 2 groups of people, 2 groups of companies, those that have been hacked and know it, and those that have been hacked and don't know it.
Yeah,
Okay, so if that is the case, it's incumbent upon all of us on the board to know something about cyber. And I think it's a team sport here. I don't think, and I would welcome comments from the people who are participating and from yourselves. I don't think that cyber should be relegated to one cyber expert. I know that some boards have taken a position that, oh, well, let's get someone, a director on the board that knows cyber, which is fine. No problem with that. That is terrific. They know the right questions. They're in the field. That's their day job. So they are experts at it, which is wonderful, a beautiful addition to any board. But it can't be one person only. It has to be a full board risk, a risk that's looked at and understood. Even if it's not at the expert level, you need to understand what's going on. So that is my plug for having more people and more knowledge about cyber on the board than just one person. And it's okay for you to have a cyber committee as well. But again, the information needs to be fed back to the board. The findings of the community, the committee has to be communicated because, like I said, it's those people who are not the experts and have enough knowledge to be dangerous and ask a question out of the blue that really is probing, that gets people saying, never thought of that one. Let me get back to you on it. That's when things get interesting in the boardroom, in my view. Not a gotcha kind of question. The expert probably can ask the gotcha questions, and I welcome them doing whatever it is that they want. That's not my personal style, but but it's those people who have enough knowledge that they can connect the dots that are going to make the difference in the boardroom.
I
That's
think
when the conversation becomes really engaging and really interesting.
yeah. So digital education and awareness needs to go up in the boardroom as well.
Continue to go up because the bad guys, the bad actors are not backing off. They are going to up their game.
Yeah.
And so we have to continue to keep cyber in particular in focus. Other things as well. It's not as if it's cyber only. We have to continue to keep all risks, especially those around whatever industry you have, and financial, that is the name of the game. That has as much risk as any other sector. You need to continually evolve and continually learn and then continually grow. You've got to be agile around that risk.
This is fascinating, Beverly. Manoj, check on the LinkedIn if there are any questions. And when you talked about risk, it got me thinking about another type of risk, like venture capitalists. VCs are very good in taking big bets, in taking risks, where they fund 10 different projects, and they know that 7 of those will fail and 3 of those will succeed, and those 3 of those will not only take care of the losses that they incurred for the next 7, but also for the next 10 years. They have enough cash that they can burn for the future. Now, when we talk about this, I have seen some companies are very conservative, where they don't fund a lot, and then they struggle with it, and it has an impact to their business. And there are some companies, they are too risky in terms of where they spend on it, and then they waste everything. There's no ROI, etc. So, as a CFO or as a board director, how do we balance that risk, the risk appetite, risk profile, the opportunity cost that is right now we are facing right now, as we discussed with AI. Some companies are taking risks, some companies are not taking risks. Anything you would like to add?
Excuse me. You have to, as a company, know what your risk profile and your risk tolerance is. You have to operate within that risk framework. And the board oversees and the board is involved and again, effectively challenging management. The board has to be comfortable with the amount of risk that the company is taking. So I think no one is expecting human beings to be perfect. We are not. What we need to see from the board level is that we have a plan. We have looked at the risks. We know how to mitigate those risks, or at least we have a plan on how to mitigate those risks. I can't remember which was it a senator or someone in government who said the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. So there are some of those that quite frankly they catch you and you're somewhat blindsided. You are hoping, and I'm hoping, that those are few, very few and far between. But if something happens, God forbid, you need to be resilient. You need to know what your backup plan is. And you need to perhaps know what the backup to that backup is. You need to be resilient. You need to know how to recover. You need to know how to mitigate and stop the risk. And you need to be transparent about it too. I have to add that because uh, if there's an error, if there is something that goes wrong, you should feel comfortable within your company raising your hand and saying, mea culpa, I screwed up or this happened, and tell the board. The board needs to be informed. It has to go up the chain and be communicated if it's again, there are, not everything we need to know as a board, but there are limits and there are reporting requirements up the chain, and we need to always operate within those limits and and risk tolerances. And if something happens and that blows that up, we need to take whatever. We have to have a plan for risk mitigation, correction, recovery, and accountability, quite frankly, should things go south.
Awesome. So I'm going to bring another question now, which is a lot in conversation, which is diversity and inclusion. And diversity and inclusion, I'm sure it is something that is near and dear to your heart in the people realm, but also how does this play out in the realm of AI? Because we are worried about biases
Mm,
and things of that nature, specifically in the financial industry when like a lot of decisions are made about people, about their ability to take on loans and things of that nature. So
mhm.
in your view, whatever is happening in the world around diversity and inclusion, and how AI is going to be used to implement some of these things, what are some of the concerns you may have, and how do you think the board of directors can be instrumental in addressing these things?
Mm. Okay, well, when we started talking about AI, and when I say we, the broader we in the board world, when we started talking about AI, it was exactly from the angle of risk. Because, you know, was the data good? Was there transparency? What are the guardrails? It was risk based. We were thinking about all of the risks that AI could pose. More risk than reward at that time. It was really a governance issue. The early decisions, the initial conversations were about, let's put the governance in place, let's put the guardrails in place, let's make sure our data is good. Let's make sure that we have full transparency. Let's make sure, and it was just a series of addressing risk related to the technology. Not a bad thing, but having put the governance in place and having done what we needed to scrub the data or make sure that the data exists or whatever it is, as again, talking broadly now, we started the implementation. And once that was clear and we all had our marching orders and the executive committee led by the CEO had their marching orders, we started down the path of implementation. Let me make it clear. AI is not going to be what is held accountable. It's people that will be held accountable. Things that go off the rail, you cannot go and hold AI accountable. So we are looking for management, and we're requiring management to have those people, processes, and results in place that mirrors our objective with respect to how we treat people, how we account for their data, how we, you mentioned lending. I could also throw in HR, hiring, and other. I mean, but as you well know, what the outcome is wholly dependent upon what the data is. If the data is not good, if the data is corrupt, if the data contains biases, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get what you put in, garbage in, garbage out. So yeah, the boards are in the governance and oversight business, and the setting up guardrails business, and the looking at risks and helping management think through the risk. But at the end of the day, the execution, as I said before, is management, and the boards are going to hold people accountable for poor execution and bad results.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, this reminded the technology that we used at IBM. We have used AI internally before we told our clients to use it. And even that technology is unbelievable. We have saved $3.5 billion in 2024 alone just for the productivity savings, the kind of operating leverage that we need by applying AI across various functions, sales, marketing, HR, etc.
Yeah.
But so we have the technology, but we also need like leaders like Manoj Agarwal give some kind of special sessions to the boardroom to enlighten them what is possible, what is not possible.
Indeed. And we have had experts come into the boardroom to inform us as well. One of the other things that I know that companies have done is look at the data, rather than going to external sources right away. Look at the data within the four walls. Use that data to understand how to proceed, and take it from there once we're comfortable.
Do you have a last question before we wrap up?
Yeah, this is fascinating, Manoj. I think with all our conversations that we ended up, if you look at the last 55 minutes, this shows the importance of the T-shaped skills that we have been talking about. And we could see, the expertise that Beverley was bringing in. It's not just the finance, it's all about the technology. You have to be well-rounded so that you should be relevant to the business that you are overseeing it. And leaders, leading voices like Beverley, when we listen to that wisdom, it's it's a best in class, best practices. That's how we make the companies good to great.
Yeah, and also resilience, as we witnessed is when we started the conversation when the internet was not working. Like we said, okay, let's just try it and let's go through it, and then it was perfect. So that was a good example of just handling the unknown, right?
Yeah, exactly. You never know where that challenge is going to come from sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Beverly, for being with us on this show.
Thank you for
Any
having me.
any last comments? If people want to connect with you, what is the best way they can get in touch with you?
Well, I think I will give you my contact information. I'd be delighted to speak with anyone who has been participating in this and want to learn more about me, about what I do, any aspect of what I spoke with. I'm happy if you want to call or send me information to disagree with me as well, so we can debate it. But this has been a delight, and I thank you both for inviting me. I really enjoyed this, and really appreciate the questions and the thoroughness and thoughtfulness you put into all of this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.
Have a great
Take good
day.
care now.
Thank you.